I think we all agree on making government as efficient as possible, and I don't think that's a word that most people connect with the word government. I think there's a contradiction in terms a lot of times, so I think that economies of scale, whether they're on the government side or the private sector side, are things that we all look towards. And I think that sharing services in certain areas certainly makes sense. No question about it. I mean, I know I represent Woodbridge, Orange, and Derby, and Derby is part of an area of the state called the Valley, Derby, Ansonia, Shelton, Seymour, et cetera. And a lot of those towns share a lot of services. They have regional ideas right now. They have a substance abuse council. They have domestic violence and social services, et cetera. EMS. They have a lot of services that they share because that works well for them. So I think a lot of areas in the state already understand that works for them. Now, that may not work in other areas. I also represent Woodbridge and Orange. They're part of a regional school district, the Amity School District, so Woodbridge, Orange, and Bethany, and they also share a lot, and they have efficiencies in that way. So I think in the areas that haven't figured that out, I think that would be beneficial. I think there's certain areas that will not work. Mm-hmm. But I think that, that's just common sense, which we're all looking for. Obviously, that the Speaker and I are on the same page in regard to rail, because it was the first thing we both mentioned. It's something that gets people off the roads. It's widely used, and it affects a lot of people in the state. So our money, I believe, is wisely used. Now, having said that, instead of widening the road and putting more traffic on the roads, fix the things we have, because certainly you can't allow people to be driving on, whether it's roads or bridges, and being unsafe. So, I think the bridges are a good way to start in regards to that. But, we have to figure out ways to get people moving. And people drive through the state constantly. And people don't want to live here because they can't get anywhere. Today was different because it was snow. But I'd never really understand why you have 1 inch of snow and all of a sudden people think it's a foot. You live in Connecticut, for goodness sake. Well, first of all, if you hear the governor speak, you would think we don't put any money into transportation in the state, and we put in between $500 million and $1 billion a year into transportation. So there is a lot of money put into it. Having said that, this lockbox idea, I still can't get my head around exactly what he means, and I'll tell you why. Because, what is that? We take a little box and put it in the corner somewhere and say, okay, here's the money, let's not take it out of there. We passed a law last year that will go into effect this July saying that all special transportation fund money will only be used for transportation. So what does it take? We have to take shackles and tie people's hands so they can't take the money out of there? At a certain point, we have to be responsible for ourselves. And tying future governors, tying future legislatures, that's a difficult thing to do without a constitutional amendment. And quite frankly, we don't have a great track record in this state for constitutional amendments. We have a spending cap, a constitutional spending cap, that we've blown through 1 million times. So, that's almost saying we don't trust ourselves, so we're going to give you another reason to try and believe us, and that's not going to work either. I'm not a big fan of tolls, but I've said before that I'm certainly open to hearing the pros and cons during a public hearing and conversations with leaders, et cetera. I think that there's no other responsible way to do it than to listen. I can't ask somebody else to listen and then say I'm not going to listen to something that I don't lean in the direction of. Having said that, part of the problem with the gas tax is our gas tax is comprised of 3 parts: the federal tax, the state tax, and then this gross receipts tax that the Speaker was talking about. So we can lower one part of it, and then other parts of it we have no control over. So to say that, okay, if we have tolls, then we have to necessarily lower the gas tax. I understand the concept of it, but it doesn't work that way in reality a lot of times, because we have lowered the gas tax many times. And then next thing you know, it's popping up again with ways we have no control over. So that's just a very slippery slope that we face in regard to that.
Have run out of time. We have a lot more questions that people wanted to ask, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of our phone calls today. But I want to thank Themis Klarides, who is the Republican House Minority Leader. Congratulations on your new position, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.